Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is DJ.com, and you are listening to The Bomb Shelter. We have been lucky enough to have my man Blueprint in the studio. Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Reno. Welcome to The Bomb Shelter.
Thanks for having me. I know this is long overdue.
Absolutely. So, my first question, you're one of my favorite bloggers, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love reading the blog, and this morning I read a quote on there. It said, I work hard because I saw my pops work hard. I'm creative because I saw my mother be creative. And I loved art because I was surrounded by it. That hit me really hard. I mean, my brother and I have always been inspired by our parents and stuff like that. But could you expand on, like, that quote right there?
Yeah. But that quote is kind of about how we often try to influence people by telling them things, you know, whether it's our friends or sometimes we feel like our family will come at us and say, this is the person you should be. This is what you should do. This is how you should run your life. But the truth is that we are the most influenced by what we see people do. And that quote is kind of about how, although my mom never told me to pursue art and never told me to be an entrepreneur, I actually ended up pursuing it because watching her talents. You know, mom was she's a seamstress and she sews and she makes dolls and art and all kind of stuff. She makes like Christmas ornaments and stuff. And she was a good singer, you know, so those are the things that influenced me more than anything she told me about, like what I should do with my career. You know, I went to college because that's what everybody around me told me to do. And I got my degree because that's what society told me to do. But what I'm doing now, what I've been doing for the last 10 years, and I'm the most happiest doing, is something that came just naturally from seeing my mom just kind of do it, you know.
Right. And like you said, your dad's work ethic just keeps you grinding.
Yep. Like my dad, he worked like third shift forever, you know, at UPS. And my dad also had like a small business for a couple years, selling like hair supplies. And he dabbled in that entrepreneurial, you know, thing. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, you know. I was just a young kid. And then he still worked, you know, he just tried that on the side. And so I think that definitely influenced me more, just seeing like my pops go out every day, you know, go in at 4:00, come in at, 2:00 in the morning every day, you know. So I would only see my dad growing up for, you know, that hour between the time I got home from school and he left at 4. But I knew that he was working pretty much if he wasn't there, you know.
Right on. Well, I thank your parents indirectly for making you into this person because, damn, man, we're really enjoying the new material.
Thanks, man.
The new album is called Deleted Scenes, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
We're still trying to digest Adventures in Counterculture. Can you tell us your inspiration for these records, please?
Well, Deleted Scenes is kind of like a companion piece to Adventures in Counterculture.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of meant for people who have Adventures in Counterculture, but and even the people who have read the book I wrote about Adventures in Counterculture, to kind of see all these pieces. Because to me, Counterculture is kind of like a movie about my life in that 4-year period and the ups and downs and my reaction to things going on around me and society and culture, and fighting that and trying to break out of that. Deleted Scenes is a companion piece in the sense that it explains all the things that didn't make it in the same way that a bonus DVD for a movie you may buy has all these deleted scenes that didn't make the movie. You know, you buy the DVD version because you love the movie, and then you get this thing that says director's cut and the deleted scenes and the commentary, and that's all the stuff that you really are like, man, why didn't this make it? Oh, this is fresh. Oh, I see why this didn't make it. It's still a great scene, you know, and then you just have further questions and a further appreciation for it.
Yeah, there's actually a track on Deleted Scenes where I keep waiting for you to rap, and you never rap, and then I listen to it 10 times in a row. Awesome. So I'm like, wait a minute, did he just trick me into listening to him sing and then I loved it? What happened here?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, man.
Well, yeah, they're beautiful records. Thanks for those.
Thank you.
Tell us about your education, career, and life before music. I mean, we've always known you, like you said on stage last night, you've been around since I've been listening to this music. So tell us, we briefly talked about it outside, but tell us about the transition from college and real life and career to becoming an artist?
Yeah, well, college was my introduction into, I'll say, hip hop, and that was because I went to a really small liberal arts college with like 2,000 students. And so you kind of knew everybody there. And I remember I wanted to be involved in music again. I mean, I grew up into I was in R&B and gospel just from church, but by the time I was 17, I was in like an R&B group, and we had like a production management. We were in a production management contract, 17. And that just went really bad. And I ended up just like hating it before I even got out of high school. And so, I was in a contract that they legally couldn't keep me in anyway. And then I just started hating it. I got to college, and that's when I had friends, and they were just into hip hop. And I was like, oh, this is cool, So I got a job at the radio station. And then there was this kid, I remember he's from Cali. And he was just like the ultimate, like, Cali dude, in the Midwest college. And he stood out like a sore thumb, because he was like long blonde haired dude walking around in flip flops and multicolored shorts, going to classes all the time. And he had the accent and the, just sunburn. And
Wait, we have an accent from California?
He did. He was like the Valley guy, like, dude, yeah, bro, dude. And this was in like 1995, when, and I'm from Ohio. We didn't have that at all. We thought it was just something out of the movies that they just kind of played up on. And that kid, he was the first kid that I ever saw with turntables. He was into DJing, and he had a job at the radio station. I remember going out, and he was like, oh man, Al, you should check out this guy, DJ Crush. Oh, you should check out DJ Shadow. And this was back when they just had the 12 inches. And I was like, whoa, it just blew my mind. And he was like, you should come out and watch me spin or learn to spin. So he would do these parties, or he would just be spinning on the oval of the school, just for whatever radio event we had. And he was like a pioneer in that sense, because it was such a new thing in 1995 if you saw somebody with turntables. And he was playing progressive stuff at that time. You're like, man, I've never heard hip hop without rapping that was still hip hop. And it kind of just blew my mind. So I started going out with him, and he started kind of teaching me the fundamentals of the turntables. He was a couple years older than me. So when he graduated, he recommended me to get his job at the radio station, which was like the production guy for remote events, like taking the turntables out, doing parties and things like that. So he recommended me for that. I got that job my sophomore year, and then I got a job on the radio station my sophomore year. And because I had the job, they let me take the turntables home in the summer. Because I got to take the turntables home in the summer, I learned how to spin, and it just started this whole thing. And I started just like taking wax from the studio, and started like learning how beats were made, doing just like pause mix beats, when you're like juggling something. And I had a little $100 drum machine at that time. I wasn't really rapping that much, but my crew was rapping. I had a crew of some of my friends, and they were rapping, so we freestyled. That was college. After I got out of college, we started putting out Greenhouse Effect tapes, because that crew ended up that was Greenhouse, we ended up forming Greenhouse. And we started putting out tapes. But I went to work. We all went to work after college. We didn't really think, to us, that music would ever really like pay off, Like I moved to Cincinnati. My two other guys in Greenhouse were still in Columbus. And so indirectly it worked out to our benefit, because as I got more involved in the scene there in Cincinnati, we began to make that like our secondary home. So we had these two markets where we started becoming popular in, Columbus and Cincinnati. I was working as a computer programmer, hating it, and I was trying to get promoted and trying to come up on the corporate ladder, and nothing was happening. And then I was trying to get out of my department, and, I was making really good money. I just wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And there was no way for my boss to kind of put me where I wanted to do. I was doing like operating system stuff, Unix stuff. And that was cool, but I was also doing a lot of support for legacy software systems, really, really old applications where there'd be one guy who knew it. He'd be like 70 years old, and then they would teach me this thing, and it would just be this nightmare of spaghetti code and things that you'd stay on call for all weekend. You'd get calls all weekend. So I never had a day off my 5 years working, but I was still recording. So we would put out the Greenhouse stuff. I produced the Logic records. I met RJ in 99. Me and RJ started like recording maybe around 2000, 2001. And at the same time he was doing Dead Ringer, we were doing 8 Million Stories. And both of us, we were nobodies at the time, and we didn't think anything of it. I was looking at it like, man, this is a cool thing to do on my weekend so I don't hate myself. So so every weekend I would just kind of go to Columbus or the greenhouse, and Logic would drive down to Cincinnati. We would either play a show or we would record. And all of us were working, you know, like Inkwell, he was like managing a Avis rent-a-car or something like that. So when we started playing shows, we'd get a free rental car to drive out of town. And, but it was just escape then. And we would just hang out and they would spend the whole weekend at my house. And it was just escape, you know. And that's what I did up until right about a few months after the Soul Position EP came out. And then, but before then, I started seeing my friends quit their jobs, you know. Like I saw RJ say, you know what, I'm just gonna quit this little job and try it, you know. Def Jux got this tour, I get to DJ for, you know, Mr. Lift or LP or something. They let me play a 20-minute set, and I think he was only making like $100 a night, but he was like, I'm gonna do it. He did it. That was like 2001. And then I think Illogic actually quit his job around then too. So Illogic, because I was running Weightless, I was doing all the administrative stuff. So we knew that Illogic records were starting to pop. And Illogic's like, forget this, man. I'm about to just start doing hip hop full time. And I'm like, man, Illogic is even doing it. So I like Illogic and RJ, D2 were both like living full time off of music, you know, from the money they would get every month. And, you know, it was a good time. And then that kind of gave me inspiration that when my time came to try it as well.
And, you know, we have to tell our listeners out there, I'm sure they're getting it, but there's a lot of all-nighters and a lot of work involved in all of that. It didn't just like fall in your lap, like you're saying, you know, like when you're like, oh, and then we just did the Illogic records. That involves so much work and dedication and A to Z, no pun intended, blueprinting of the process, you know?
Oh, definitely. Like, I didn't really have a life outside of work except music. I wasn't drinking when I was working, really, so I didn't go out at all. I would work like 9 to 9, and then yeah, that sounds so terrible even saying it, like, but you guys know 9 to 9 shifts. That's very real. You know, you're the first, you know, the last guy to leave every day.
Pulled a couple of all day shifts myself.
Yeah, man, the 9 to 9, and then I get home. And I would say, you know, okay, I got like 3 hours. What am I going to do? And I would just make beats, or I would write that, or I would work on somebody else's record. That was all I would do. I would take that 3 hours every single day. And then on Saturdays, I would go digging for records. And that was my day. I would just go to, you know, Northern Kentucky and go to thrift shops and pawn shops and stuff and look for records in record stores around Cincinnati. Do that from like maybe 9 or 10 o'clock till 5 in the afternoon on Saturdays. And that was like an awesome day to me because I was always on call. I couldn't really leave town very often because of, you know, being on call. But yeah, that's all I did when I wasn't working.
Oh, you're saying like you were on call for if code broke or something?
Yeah, if code broke. I always carried a pager. I was 24/7 response. So no matter what happened, if a call didn't get solved by the first, you know, call, when they would escalate it, that would always go straight to me. And so I would, no matter where I was, I always had to be accessible. So I couldn't go too far.
Gotcha. We know a couple code guys these days, and man, talk about a blue collar job in the tech industry.
Yeah, it's not awesome.
It is not awesome.
You know, there was stuff I wanted to do, but like I said, I was so tied to those legacy systems. And this is right during the year 2000 switch. So during the year 2000, you had to convert all of these older systems to systems that worked now, you know, and when you converted them, you had to keep them, you know. Sometimes they use that as an opportunity to, you know, end an old legacy system. Sometimes they use it as an opportunity to just update the code and maintain it further. And we were a supermarket. They didn't care about being that progressive. You know, they were just like, let's just keep it working,
right, so
that people know what they're using when they get to work, and so we can sell groceries, you know what I'm saying? So that just tied me to more old things that couldn't be, you know, I couldn't get off my back.
So you're saying your code chops are not up to 2012 standards?
Probably not. No, not at all. My Unix is probably okay, you know, but it's not.
And Unix is very viable still.
Yeah.
You could probably go tomorrow and get a job.
I think so. I bought a book a couple months ago, you know, just I was curious, like, man, I wonder how much of this I can still pick up.
Speaking of books, let's plug the books. I mean, I saw grown men walking out of that venue last night hugging that book like they got the Bible from you or something. Tell me about the books. Obviously, it's a culmination of this adventure you've been on.
Yeah, well, when I started, like, I say like 2.5, 3 years ago, 2009, I started blogging. And I started blogging just because I was like, I had all these things to say that I didn't think fit into music. but in a way they're kind of bigger than music, you know. And I was like, man, I need to express these things, get these ideas out of my head, and share these with people. And through blogging, I just kind of got the idea that, okay, what if I'm just blogging, but what if this ends up being something bigger? At a minimum, it's going to make me a better writer. So I started just like getting a little more serious with it over time. And then the good thing about blogging is that it gives you immediate feedback. So I was like seeing what people were responding to and what they were not responding to very fast. And I started seeing the things that people responded to the most were the real personal things, the things about real life, not necessarily like, oh yeah, I made a beat today and this is how you make a beat and this is something really musical. You know, that's something that artists can respond to. But when you start talking about people, it's a much bigger thing. So that kind of inspired me to try to become a better writer. So I started using the blog as just a forum to express things and become a better writer. And then around 2010, I turned in the Adventures in Counterculture record to Rhymesayers, and I knew it wasn't going to come out to the next year. So I was touring, and we were on tour with Killer Priest, me and Illogic. We were touring with Killer Priest, and we were in the back of the van. I had an idea like, man, I should start writing a blog series about Adventures in Counterculture. And I wonder if I can write it to where maybe I use this and I drop a blog every week that explains a song. So I wrote one of them, and I think it was about Automatic. And I was still drinking at the time, so my focus wasn't 100%. You know, like when you're drinking, you're still socially out. You're not home 24/7 working on things. So I had that chapter saved, and then when Adventures in Counterculture came out, I was like, man, I wanted to write it. But then little did I know, I was touring like 200 days that year that Adventures in Counterculture came out. You know, I did maybe 125, 130 shows, and you think about how long it takes you to do those shows and traveling and everything. I was going 200 days that year. I didn't have time to write a book, you know. But at the end of 2011, I got home from Europe. No, we went to Europe in November 2011, and I just told myself, I said, man, I don't drink anymore. I'm on this bunk. We don't have to drive on this tour. So what I'm going to do is just sit in my bunk and just get these thoughts out of my head. So every night after the shows in Europe, I would sit in my bunk for like an hour and just kind of get everything out of my head. So that kind of helped me come up with 2 or 3 more chapters, enough to really make me think I could do it when I got home. I got home Thanksgiving, and from Thanksgiving to about March, I didn't really leave the house. All I did was write every day, like 8 to 15 hours a day. I would be up till 4 or 5 in the morning, just writing, getting thoughts out of my head. I wasn't worried about the format or it being like in book form. I was just worried about recalling the experiences. And eventually I saw that, this is enough to write a book. You know, this is if I can sit down and really tailor this and make this look good and get it tightened up, this is something that I think people would be interested in. And I started talking to people about the concept as well. And the people I talked to, they were like, yeah, you should definitely do that. Like, no one writes books. People would love to see what their favorite artist's thought process was and experience was that goes into the music. And, you know, we're also in the era where there's no more liner notes. In a digital era, you know, we used to be able to unfold a record jacket, read about the whole record, and get the liner notes and be like, oh, these are the production credits. And it really enhanced our experience. Now it's the physical part of that is divorced from the music. And so I kind of looked at it like, okay, I can achieve 2 things. I can service these people who really do want to know like what went into this record. And then I can also like create something in that realm that represents what we used to have when we grew up listening to music. That physical component where you're like, I'm going to sit down with this and take my time with it. And I'm going to walk over and flip over the album. And it's a physical thing. And, you know, you look at it and you look at the art. And while you're reading it, it's like an experience, you know?
Right. Yeah, the kid that I saw come with your book out of the bar last night, the professional snowboarder.
Oh, really?
You know, so I think that there's metaphors and stuff that he can apply to it, because I'm sure in the book, I need to have it before you leave, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you're telling kids that you can make it out there without having to do the 9-to-5 typical grind thing.
Definitely. Like the feedback I've gotten on the book has been incredible. Like so much of it, like I took some of it and like I actually take like when people tweet about it, I save some of those and put it in the section on my blog just so that other people can see what it's about and hear it not from me, because I don't want to be like, hey, this is the most amazing book, you should buy it. I kind of want to say, hey, you know what? This is the book. This is what everyone else is saying. And through what they're saying, maybe it's what you want to read, maybe it's not, but that kind of will at least help someone kind of have an unbiased opinion of what it is. And the feedback has been incredible. There's people who told me they've read it in one sitting. People said they've cried after they've read it. Every artist has said they've been incredibly inspired by it.
Yeah, we were talking about you last night, and I think you fall into that very finite category of a rapper's rapper, like to where other MCs appreciate what you do artistically. Like I'll never forget, Slug never mentioned any names because that's not how he rolls.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm not the best rapper, but I know some kids that are the best rapper. You know what I mean? And so and in my head, I'm thinking Aesop Rock, you, Brother Ali, he's just like, more people need to know about these cats. Like, being a rapper's rapper, that's such a corny thing to say.
But it's true.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, because I think that you make the kind of music that a rap artist could listen to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And rap artists are kind of snobby.
Big time.
When it comes to rap. So, yeah, if you can become a rapper's rapper, you definitely have a place that is, it's like you're saying, it's a small group of guys where like the rappers are excited about hearing those guys,
Speaking of that, what are you bumping rap wise? I mean, if anything, or what are you listening to? What are you absorbing? What art are you listening to?
Let me think. I mean, lately I've been listening to a lot of like instrumental music again. I'm really into like that the LA beat scene with like the Brain Feeder stuff and the Flying Lotus and Sam I Am and like all those guys who are just like making beats, because it kind of reminds me of the DJ Crush, the DJ Shadow, like that first movement of trip hop.
Like Gas Lamp Killer?
Exactly. Like all those guys, they remind me of that first movement, because I don't think we've seen anything here in the States since, they had Ninja Tune in Europe. We've never had a label or a movement of instrumentalism in the United States. You had Shadow hit, and then everything kind of fell back. Then you had RJD Tune, and, these were guys who were at the forefront, but there was no movement. And when I think LA has a movement now of instrumentalists that is as exciting to me as when I first heard DJ Crush and Shadow and Spooky and all that trip hop and all that stuff back in 95, 97.
Like hearing Madlib and then how prolific that guy is. And that's got to be inspirational as an artist.
Oh, definitely. Whenever I think like I'm doing enough, I look at him and I'm like, oh man, you're not doing anything, man. You can do more. He's probably got 5 records waiting in the wings, and here I am with my 1 or 2 and my book. I'm like, oh man, I can do more,
Yeah, thank you, Madlib, for setting the bar so damn high.
Yeah. But I'm gonna catch him. I got a lot of things working now.
Nice. It seems that recently you've been grinding more than when we first met. Can you explain that inspiration?
I think my inspiration, man, is this is a conversation I had with some of my friends, and my inspiration is time. Like I tell one of my buddies, I was like, man, if time doesn't motivate you, nothing will. And a lot of guys, they have no concept of time. They think that they've got forever to do everything. They're just really comfortable being in one spot, and they think it's going to be like that tomorrow. But everything I've seen in my life, not even musically, has shown me that time, as they say, time waits for no man, and that we have to really, really push if we want to achieve things here that are memorable and honorable, and things that we can, be proud of when it's our time to not work anymore. You have to build your legacy while you are able to work. And so I'm just trying to kind of build something that if I stop, when I can no longer do it, I can look back and say, yo, I'm proud of it. I pulled no punches. I did everything I could musically, personally. I was as ambitious as possible. And that's what motivates me now is time, just thinking like, wow, there are people who thought they had tomorrow and they don't. And I'm sure that I have been one of those people, but now I am not. Now I look at tomorrow like, if I see it, awesome. If I don't, or if I can't function like this tomorrow, then I'll at least know that I put everything I had into it, every ounce of creativity and effort into this.
Wow, good answer.
Thank you.
Tell us about making records with Rhymesayers and how that family atmosphere, no pun intended, helps your art. Brother Ali had a lot of things to say about how that model really inspired him to know that he had people behind him, you know? So
Oh yeah. Well, the biggest thing there is that I have a friendship with them, and so my relationship with Sadiq and Slug and the guys, the main core guys there, and Idea, rest in peace, and and all of those guys. It goes way back, to '99. I think I met those guys, and because of that, my interaction with them is not exactly that of like a artist in a contract with a label who has to be financially viable. My relationship is completely different because I don't even have a contract. I don't have anything binding me to Rhymesayers. I can do anything I want to do, but at the same time, those are like, that's my family. Those are my brothers. So like when I'm working on something, like when I was working on Adventures in Counterculture, they were a huge support system for me. Not just on some, oh yeah, here's financially, or here's a tour, or here's something like that. It was more like Slug and Sadiq were the main two people hearing the entire process. So I would kind of disappear, work on things for some months, emerge with some songs that sounded all really weird and crazy, and they would be like, whoa, what's this, and then they would say, and they would say, man, this is crazy, because I told them what I wanted to do and I explained it, but then doing it is completely different. So as I was going through that process, finding my way, finding my style, there was a lot of experimentation there. I recorded 100 songs for that record and only 15 on the album. So a lot of that is just me experimenting, bugging out, doing things. Some things worked, some things didn't. Some things had a piece that worked that I could extract and expand upon. And so they were the chief support system through that entire process, letting me know that I didn't have to do what I did before. The 1988 record was one to where they were like, look, obviously, if you were to put out something that sounds like this, you could be as successful as you were before. There's no doubt about that. But if you are strong enough and bold enough and thorough enough to go through this process that you're going through with Adventures in Counterculture, because Sadiq and I, he was the first person to say, look, this is not a record, this is a process. You're doing music. You need to do music like you work out every day. You need to do it like you're trying to build muscles. Every day you may do a few more reps, and although you may not reach your peak every day, the fact that you're building those muscles, try to exhaust those muscles. And he told me that, from the beginning. And at the beginning, I wasn't quite sure because I was just experimenting. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do a song every now and again when I'm feeling it. But by the middle of the process, I started to look at it like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing every day, period. Seeking to become the best artist I can. And every day won't be the best day. Like I used to go into the studio and tell myself, like, look, man, look at this thing like it's like you're like a little league baseball coach, whereas they're always just like, it's not about winning, just go out there and have fun, And when I started telling myself to just go in there and have fun, that's when I did my best music. But when I went in there with an agenda, like, oh, well, today you're going to make some super boom bap stuff. You're going to talk about the industry. It never worked. Or when I went in there like, oh, you're going to make a really fast jam that can, like a b-boy song. It never worked. It was never fruitful. But when I went in there and I just started just hamming around, playing on the piano, find a little piece of music from here, find something there, throw them together, and just have fun, everything worked great. And so they were the chief supporters of that entire process, that entire transformation. And their only question to me was like, look, if you're going to take it there, take it all the way there. They didn't want anything. They didn't want me to kind of have one foot in and one foot out, relying on the safety that was, the 1988 sound. They were like, look, if you're going to go, make a statement to where people are just like blown away, even if it's not what they expect,
Well, I can say as a fan of that record, it achieved that with us. Because it was dense enough to have to listen to it a bunch of times, but it was accessible enough that I've still heard Blueprint in there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or Soul Position or those influences. But man, it was drastically apparent to us as fans that you made a left turn.
Yeah, definitely, man.
in a really good way.
Thank you.
I've heard you make multiple records for the kids, quote unquote. You know, there's that one that we were just talking about outside that's for your niece. And I heard you talking about her being a self-admitted nerd and stuff like that.
Yep.
Without getting too political, let's just talk about like the kids.
Yeah. Man, the kids are mad important. I think I don't have any kids, but the longer I do this, the longer I understand the importance of the youth. And, this last year was the first time I had opportunities to actually go speak to classes and teach kids stuff. So I did like a creative writing class with some kids, and I did another one, I can't remember, this summer. And they were eye openers, one I would talk about poetry and I would just talk about my career, because the kids, they have that thing that adults don't have anymore, like that bright eye, that hope, that optimism that sometimes when you become an adult, it gets whittled away at. You feel like, well, maybe I can't do everything that I thought I could do, when I was a kid. But when you're a kid, you can be anything, and you should feel that thing. You should feel that, man. Like, becoming an adult, yeah, it's an exercise in like taking on more responsibility and becoming more mature. But at the same time, it should be an exercise in maintaining your inner child. And I think that too many adults forget that they also need to maintain their inner child, that sense of discovery, that sense of just like adventure, that sense of feeling like there are no boundaries or no limits to what you can do with your life and what you can achieve. And that's something where I think we need to always be in touch with the youth as adults. And if you fall out of touch with the youth and that mentality, that is when you start to kind of lose your own way a bit. Children inspire us, and children should inspire us to become better people. Many adults, I'm sure we all know many adults who have had kids and have changed. And that's just because of the hope and the spirit of children is so inspiring that it brings out the best in us. And so I think as artists, if we're conscious of that, it can only influence our art in a positive way. So I try to look at it like, okay, children, I'm not making necessarily albums for kids. However, it's necessary for me to think about them, because that forces me to keep my inner child alive. My own optimism is restored and maintained through working with kids and understanding what childhood is and understanding what adolescence is, that awkward period that you have, and the things you can't talk about with your parents. And the more we understand that as adults, the more we can create music that represents everybody,
I think I'm done with you, sir.
Awesome, man.
Go ahead and just tell us what you're up to. Tell us about the new record, any shout outs, tour dates, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Right now I'm working on multiple projects right now. I've got me and RJ just started the new Soul Position record right before I left for this tour. So I recorded 10 or 11 songs for that. And so the goal is to finish recording that this winter, just my part of it. And I'm going to give it to him and let him just do his producer thing to it. And, no one's heard really anything off of it. So we're just going to kind of take our time. We want it to be, as good as, if not better than everything we've done before, especially because it's been a while. But the music is sounding really, really great so far, so we want to do that. And I want to put that out next year sometime. My next solo record is about 80-90% done. I just have 2 songs that I'm kind of switching out, but I've been working on that constantly. So I think I would like next year to be a big year. And then I also have Greenhouse records with a Logic that are done that I want to cut out this winter, because we do the wintry hip hop thing. And so it's important for those records to come out between December and February when they make sense, so we got 2 of those waiting in the wings.
His record with Blockhead is phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. They got a great chemistry, man. It's odd because Blockhead, after he and I did the Celestial Clockwork record, Blockhead wanted to work with him. And I was like, dude, do the record with Blockhead right now. And then all these things happened, and he ended up putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then I'm glad that they kind of stayed in touch, and they're still, have a friendship to where they're doing it now, because I think Blockhead has a great understanding of Illogic and what complements him, because Illogic sounds best when he's just kind of unconventional and kind of weird and poetic, and he can just kind of be himself. And sometimes he'll try to make conventional records, but I think he's at his best when he's just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do whatever.
All right, sir, thank you so much.